And good morning. Welcome to the Workday learning session for exempt employees here at HomeSite. My name is Eric Vanderveen. We'll be starting in just a few moments. We just want to make sure we get everybody into the session. So hang tight and we'll be right back with you. You're good. All right, excellent. Good morning. My name is Eric Vanderveen. I'm a part of Learning and Development from corporate, as well as a part of HR here at HomeSite. I want to welcome you to our Workday learning session for exempt employees. Really, the focus of today will be to help get you started successfully for day one, week one, month one within Workday. But first, just want to talk through a couple of logistics. On this WebEx, if you would type in any of your questions into the chat box, we'll get to those questions as we go through the various demonstrations that we will prepare for you here. And by all means, please feel free to leverage that chat box. We will have you muted for obviously reasons because we have a number of people on the call and in the classroom. So we'll make sure that we address any of your questions along the way. So with that, let's get started and talk a little bit about what is Workday. Workday is actually the state of the art in the industry within something called HRIS systems, Human Resource Information Systems. It also comes across as kind of being an HR-driven initiative here at HomeSite, And quite honestly, it's very much different than that. It's much larger than that. This is a corporate initiative moving in the direction of pulling systems together and being able to have one central point of contact for information about our most important resources, which are our people. It allows us to tap into information about you, your interests, your skills, your certifications, projects that you've worked on, interests that you have as far as developing other teams or growing within teams, so that as new opportunities arise across not only home site, but within Workday, we also share this tenant with American Family, who's been on this now for about 2 years. And shortly, early on, say mid to end of January of 2019, the general will also come on board, and information about our resources, about our people, will be able to be searched, leveraged accordingly to help us better continue to move the needle and execute and drive the business forward. When you talk about Workday, I really liken it to your cell phone. We all like smartphones. In fact, we all walk around looking at our smartphones all day long. I see people walking down the hall typing into it every day. I see people doing that right now, as a matter of fact. The reason I liken Workday to a smartphone is the idea that as I want to do more types of things, I add apps to a smartphone. Whether it's Waze, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Uber, right, whatever it happens to be, each one of those apps has something specific that it allows me to do. Workday is very similar to that. As you notice where it says here on the landing page of Workday, you see all these various apps, also known as worklets. Each one of those apps has something specific that you can do, execute, change, view, whatever it happens to be, right there in the worklet. And we'll talk more about that as we go along. The best part about this is we'll actually take you through a demonstration to, again, help you be successful in day one, week one, and month one, realizing that it's just the initial bite of the apple. While you see all kinds of apps there, including benefits and performance and those types of things, we're not going down that path right now. There'll be more coming to help utilize those apps, simply because we're just not there on the calendar. We're not prepared to get into open enrollment and benefit conversations because we're not quite to November. We're not going to talk about performance and performance reviews, even though both of those will be done here in Workday, because we're just not quite to the end of the year yet. But again, more will be coming on that. So we're going to kind of focus our time on personal information and absence, because everybody loves PTO. And those are some of the areas, again, to help you work through this. I have with me this morning, joining me, Michelle Yoder, who's a part of our CAN agent network, our Change Agent Network representatives. We have about 75 of them across the organization, between Akron, Boston, Phoenix, and Seattle. They've had an opportunity to get into Workday a little bit more in advance than others, but quite honestly, we kind of threw them into the deep end. We didn't give them job aids. We didn't give them video tutorials. We didn't do any train the trainers. We just said, hey, here you go. Here's access to Workday, and go exercise this type of event. Go work through this scenario and tell us how it feels, how it works, how easy it is, those types of things. So Michelle has been kind enough to volunteer to help kind of drive this demo for us. And along the way, I'll add some color commentary and certainly answer any questions that you might have. Again, please utilize the chat box to send those with us. I have Jessica Driscoll, who's also part of the Learning and Development Organization here at HomeSite, kind of being my behind-the-scenes director, and she'll funnel those questions to me as well. So without further ado, I'm going to step out of the way and out of the limelight here and hand it over to Michelle, who's going to take us through the demonstration, and then we'll talk through some color commentary as well. Michelle?
Good morning. So we're going to start on the home page. What you see on your screen right now is what we reference as the home page. This is where you go to do many of the activities that Eric has referenced before, adding PTO, updating your personal information, those kinds of actions that are HR related, right? So there's a couple of things that I want to point out on this home page here. The first one being this W right up here in the left-hand corner. this is what gets you back to home. So if you're in an application and you're lost and you're not really sure where you're at or what happened or how you got there, you can always click this and it takes you right back to your home screen. The second one we want to show you is the search bar. It's pretty intuitive, and it's actually a really great tool to use. So if you want to find somebody in here, you can type their name and just hit enter, and it'll pop up all the options you have available. You can click into their profile, you can find out where they work, who they report to, kind of what they do, their job title, that sort of kind of public information. All that's available through the search bar. There's other things you can search in there too that we'll talk about later, but you can kind of search what you're looking for, and it's kind of akin to a Google search. The more you use it, the smarter it gets, the better the results are that are returned to you. So that's always a great feature to utilize.
Look, and I would just add that the search feature really enabled the CAN agents and others to navigate through what they were looking to accomplish. You can type in keywords, don't have to know exactly what you're even looking for, just a couple of keywords around absences or my absences or time off, whatever that happens to be. Feedback is obviously a good example. Give feedback, get feedback, those types of things. It is very intuitive, and as Michelle mentioned, it kind of gets smarter as we go. So the more times we see the various types of searches happening, the quicker it returns those same types of results because others are also looking for it. It's a great tool to leverage as you begin to navigate through Workday.
The next thing we'll talk about is the notifications section. There's no notifications here in this particular profile, but this section just tells you that something happened in Workday. Nothing in this section requires your action. It's just letting you know something happened. So if you, for example, were to submit a name change through HR, it would notify you here when that name change is completed. The next thing we want to talk about is the inbox. You see two tabs here at the top. You have Actions and Archives. In your Actions folder, you have things that need to be completed on your part, right? So here, Leonardo's requested feedback from you for some project that you've worked on together. You're updating a direct deposit here. This is notifying you to update your career profile. Kind of a neat thing about the inbox is you can do everything from the inbox. So if, for example, it's open enrollment time, you'll have a notification here that you need to complete open enrollment, and you can complete that right from your inbox. So you can go and you can complete actions from various areas in Workday. You don't necessarily have to go back to the home page, find what you want to do, and locate it that way. You can do it from where you're at.
Look, and just a couple of things here within this. First, this is a training environment, so sometimes it doesn't always play nicely as we hope. But here's the important distinction with your inbox. This is not connected to Outlook. This is not going to generate extra emails. You're not going to send emails from here. You're not going to receive emails from here. Think of your inbox as your to-do list, right? And in this case, Leonardo is a fairly new employee, so Leonardo, at least I think it's a he, right? Leonardo is being prompted here to provide some extra information about his career profile, information about himself. Also, he's going to add direct deposit. He also has a notification that he's giving some feedback, right? So those are all actionable items. And as Michelle mentioned, the nice thing about it is you click into your inbox, you can fulfill anything right there. So I check Workday when I start my day. I look for any types of inbox notifications. I can do those right now. I can come back to them a little later if it's not urgent or really pressing, but I certainly want to make sure that I address those because those do need my attention. The real beauty about Workday is we've now been able to move some of the whole notions of dependency on others to execute a couple of very basic types of transactions. If I want to change my name because, woo, I got married or, woo, I got divorced, I can do that in the system without having to go get documentation to HR, get up out of my seat or out of my cube, go find them, give them the documentation, and then kind of wait. I can execute those types of changes right here. I can change my address, those types of things, contact names, emergency contacts, phone numbers. I can do all of those things myself, and it will be routed to the appropriate party, whether it's somebody in HR or certainly maybe my manager as well, and I'll see how that process is flowing. There'll be a notification that I have sent it, and then that individual will have another notification in their inbox. So it's still providing you a paper trail without the paper. It's all done electronically and gives you, as an employee, much greater flexibility to be able to make those types of changes on your own.
The other part of the inbox we want to point out is the archive section. So anytime anything is completed through the inbox, it will then transfer over into the archive, and it will retain 30 days worth of history. So you can see that Donatello here successfully requested PTO. You can look back and see that feedback was successfully given, that sort of history of actions that you've taken for the last 30 days. The next thing we want to talk about is your profile icon. We'll jump back into the actual profile, but this is where you can go to view your actual profile as an employee. And there's a lot of good information we'll touch on here in a little while to talk about that. That's just the basic layout of the home page. We'll go ahead and talk about personal information now. So you look for this application called personal information. When you come in here, you'll see you have two options. You can change or you can view. So if, let's say, I got married and I wanted to change my last name, I now have the ability to come in here. I can update what my new last name is, and then I can enter comments if necessary. For name changes specifically, documentation is required, such as a marriage certificate or a divorce certificate or something along those lines. You can actually add that here and attach it, and then when you submit it, you'll see that it'll trigger to HR for approval. So what you'll see is you'll see a notification who it was sent to and what the status is and the time you submitted it, all of that.
Right, and equally, I would say it will give you a paper trail that knows exactly who in HR would have that in this case.
Exactly.
So if she was actually to continue that process and submitted it, she would have received an error that you saw pop up there periodically. Errors are okay, right? Don't worry about if you see an error. If you click on that error, you can open it up and it will tell you what you have forgotten to do. In this case, she was not attaching the document, which was a requirement because of the process of a name change. So errors are helpful because it will help point out things that you may have neglected or forgotten. And in some cases, it just means you didn't scroll down far enough on the page to actually answer or submit all of the information that you needed.
And if you go into the view section, let's say I want to view my address because I'm not sure what, I actually have on file with home site. When you come in here, you'll notice you can look at your home contact and your work contact. If you notice something is incorrect, you can actually edit it from the view section also. So this goes back to the not having to do everything from one location. You can do it from many locations here in Workday. So if I wanted to go in and change my home contact, I can do that right from here and then update this address, add a phone number, add an email if I wanted to, and then save that.
Again, part of the beauty here of Workday is to put more self-service at your fingertips and allow you to make some basic changes and share information that you need to do rather than getting up and going to find somebody and then kind of waiting. I don't want to say that, when you contact somebody, it kind of drops into a black hole, but sometimes it feels that way. And as this notification process takes place, you'll be able to see exactly where it was routed, who has it, and who you are waiting on to take action on whatever you've submitted.
The next thing we're going to talk about is the personal profile. So again, you click on now that Workday is live, your headshot that was taken at your location will be uploaded in the system. If your headshot's not uploaded, this will be a cloud. So you click here and then go into View Profile, and it'll take you to this page. There's a couple of things we want to point out here. You have all these tabs over here. You can look through all of this information. One of my favorite features of Workday is the org chart that they have built into it. It's very interactive. I can come in here, and if I want to know who Leonardo reports to, which is Donatello's boss, my boss, I can hit this gray arrow up here, and it'll take me up to his boss and whoever is on that team. And I can continue going all the way up through the organization. And let's say I want to go back down. Let's say I want to see who's on Billy's team. If I click this arrow, it'll bring me down to Billy's team, and I can drill down into different teams from there. So it's really neat to kind of be able to go into all of these different, you know, teams here. If you have somebody you're trying to reach and maybe they're out on PTO, you can find their team members this way. You can get their contact information. It'll have their email address, their phone number, all that kind of information in here for you.
Yeah. Look, so just a couple of things. First, I think this is a great feature because I've been at HomeSite for almost 3 years, and I've never seen an org chart. So the beauty of this is I am working with Donatello, for example, who may now be on vacation, but I can see who's also on Donatello's team. I can reach out to that individual because that person may be able to help me. And if not, I can see who Donatello's manager is. Maybe he or she can help me. So it just gives me a greater view of the organization. And as I mentioned to you, we also share this tenant with American Family, even though this is a training environment and I can go all the way up into Fabian. When we go live, you'll be able to go and drill up or down, however you look at it, all the way into not only HomeSite, but also American Family, because we certainly have some shared resources and shared projects and groups working together. So I can share information with them as well. So many of the things we're going to show you, you can actually leverage and utilize for American Family as well as HomeSite. And then come January of 2019, when the general comes on board, that would also be the case for them as well. In fact, if you notice here at the top of the profile page, there's a couple of things we'll point out to you. Yes, it talks about your company. I'm a part of HomeSite, but you'll notice in the location it says HS and then Arizona and Phoenix. It's just a notification that that's a part of HomeSite. You'll see AF for American Family, which also has an office in Phoenix. So it's just some greater detail and information about, am I looking at somebody at HomeSite, somebody at American Family, and eventually then the general, which I got to believe will be TG. You never know. The other point of reference here within your profile is Workday gives you an opportunity to leverage the activities that you need to accomplish from several different avenues, whether it's the home page where the apps are, or whether you want to do those types of things directly from your profile. That left-hand column in blue allows you to access the same type of information, whether it's personal, compensation, your pay, and obviously, right, not everyone viewing your profile would be able to see your compensation or your pay. That would be certainly just something you see as an individual contributor, but there are pieces and parts of that, kind of like your LinkedIn page that you have that's accessible to information to anyone who views you. That's what will happen on the profile. So the more information you share about my skills, my interests, my projects, my certifications, that's all searchable. It would be potentially able to be leveraged as we are looking for individuals with these certain skills, certifications, or project interests. In fact, when we go live, this will be one of the first sections we ask you to get into, because as we poured over information from ADP, as we slowly but surely, we're basically phasing out ADP for most activities. We're only going to leverage ADP to do payroll. So, and we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But as we port over information from ADP into Workday and into your personal information, we just want to make sure that that's valid, right? So go in, take a look at your personal information, your emergency contacts, your contacts. Certainly make any edits or changes that you need to. I know from my own experience, again, I've been here for almost 3 years. It's been a little while since I looked at my ADP account to see that type of information. So I think there are some phone numbers and addresses that may need to be updated.
The other thing I want to show you guys while we're in here is this actions button. Again, this comes back to being able to do things in multiple places. So you can come in here, you can look at your personal data and update any of this information. You can look at your time and leave. You can request time off from this page as well. So again, just multiple ways to access the same kind of actions that you need to take. The next thing we want to talk about is the time off section in Workday. They call this absence. It's just another word for PTO. A couple of things we want to take note of on the home page here. This will give you your available PTO balance as of today. One of the things you'll notice is that both of them are listed in hours. Right now, we talk about PTO in, we speak of it in days, but in Workday, it's calculated in hours. It's actually a lot more accurate. You can see exactly what you have as of today. And then you can also go in, and I'll show you how to request an absence. You can calculate your balance for the future, et cetera.
Look, this is a pretty cool change, I think, right? Because now, as opposed to using PTO trackers, kind of that Excel spreadsheet that sometimes is well kept and other times not, you get an immediate, as a glance view of how much time do I have, right? And that's just one of the changes that we're going to talk about through Workday, right? That conversion from days into hours, a little bit more exact. And as you go through that, I know Michelle's going to show you a couple of other ways that you can see not only time today, but some time in the future as well.
Yeah. So if I want to request an absence, I can come in here. I can pick any day on the calendar. Let's say I want to take off the 25th. If I wanted to take off multiple days, I can click and drag and highlight multiple days. So let's just click on one for now. Say I want to take off the 26th. You'll come into this section and you'll pick the type of PTO you want to take, whether it's bereavement PTO, parental leave, any of this. For our circumstances, we're going to choose PTO. One of the things to take note of in here is that you can change the quantity of hours. For a salaried employee, you are scheduled for 7.5 hours a day. So if you wanted to take a half day, you would do 3.75 hours. And you could update the quantity and just click done. The other thing I want to point out in here too is when you're in editing this quantity, you do have the ability to input a note. So let's say you're taking a half day in the morning, you're going to come in at noon. I will be in at noon. That will transfer over to your manager. As a salaried employee, it doesn't require your manager's approval to enter PTO, like before it adds it to the calendar, but it will notify them that you requested PTO. You just submit it, and now you can see that down here on the 26th, my half day, this green check mark means it's automatically approved as a salaried employee. And we'll go back into that absence application, and I'll show you a few other things here too. If I realize that I don't want to, in fact, take that day that I just requested, I come back to this absence application and click on correct my absence. If I go in here, just click on one of these days, I can hit this little negative sign and remove it, and then just submit it, and it'll remove that PTO from my calendar. And you can see now it's gone.
All right, so a couple things I think worth noting here. Even though this is obviously a tool to help track and identify how much time off I have and when I'm taking it, it doesn't circumvent the conversation I should still have with my manager. So if Michelle is my manager, I would certainly want to give her the heads up that, hey, I'm going to take half a day or 3 days, 5 days, right? Whatever it happens to be, coming up in October. So she knows it's coming. She knows when she sees that notification, it's already been discussed. And that way she can also fill in any gaps like, hey, Eric, don't forget about the fact that we had that project meeting on Wednesday. So could you maybe come in the morning and take the afternoon off so we can do that project meeting? Doesn't mean that they're going to say, no, you can't do it. But again, we don't want to circumvent the fact that the conversation should happen first and then put it into Workday. A couple of other things that you'll notice here as well that may not always be well known is you also have availability of hours for volunteer time here at HomeSite. We're certainly big in giving back to the community. So if you're working with some of the nonprofit around your area, you have up to 15 hours that you can use for volunteer time in the course of a year. That can be half a day or full day, whatever you would like. If you don't use those days, they go away, they don't carry over. But then in 2019, you'd see those days of those hours, I should say, reappear.
So if you want to look in the future and see what your balance might be, let's say I want to take a vacation right around Christmas time, I can come in and look and see what my balance would be as of, let's say, the 24th, right? Change the date, hit OK, and it'll show you, you can see what your updated balance will be. So right now you have 5.19, and if you scroll all the way over, it'll show you by that period of time you'll have 48.15 available to you.
Which is a nice planning tool, right? Because I know a lot of people are planners, so as I think back into the future of, hey, I would like to take some time off for a family vacation in October or November or whatever it happens to be, I can scan ahead, look at how much time I would have accrued by that time, and that may even help me shape the fact that I'm going to take 3 days, maybe not 2. Just a couple of other things to note within this calendar. The system itself is intuitive enough to recognize that if you were to take time off that spans over a weekend, it will recognize that those are weekends and not count that against your PTO. It would also recognize holidays that we celebrate here at home site. If you were to include a holiday in that request, it would be smart enough not to include that in your hourly time that's being taken away. It will also recognize your anniversary date. So if that anniversary date takes place and you now have a higher accrual level for PTO, it will automatically roll over for you and accrue that way and recognize your anniversary date.
Yep. The other thing I'll just show you real quick is this Teams calendar. You can come in and view your team. You just hit OK. And it'll show you, in this particular case, nobody else has PTO on the team, but if someone else had PTO, it would show you their name here, and you'd be able to see if there are multiple people off, that sort of thing. So you can kind of keep track of who on your team is off. The next thing I want to show you is this.
All right, so hang on right there. So I'm sure that there are probably a couple of questions about PTO or absence requests. So let me turn this over to Jessica and see if there are a couple of questions that we can address there.
All right, so actually 3 questions. 2 of them you already answered, but just to reiterate, Tyler asked, how many hours per day off? It's 7.5 for the exempt employee.
Yes.
And then Nicole had mentioned, okay, basically I don't have to email my supervisor. I just go through here for PTO. No, it does not take away from that conversation that you have with your manager. And the third one, Tyler brought up, he noticed, now that we're live in Workday, he noticed that his hours are incorrect for PTO. Is this a known issue right now?
Yep, so great questions, right? So let's just kind of reiterate a couple of things. As an exempt employee, your day is calculated as 7.5 hours. So I know it makes me laugh too, because I know my day is not 7.5 hours, but that's how we officially calculate it. So when you look at the total of hours that has been ported over, bear in mind that whether it was your manager or somehow along the line, you reported to your manager, we have pulled over, as of September 1st, the amount of PTO that you have had, that you have accrued. If that number is not correct, right, if you look at that number of hours and divide that by 7.5, that should give you the days that you are moving over. If that is not correct, then please reach out to your manager and have them contact HR. Yeah. I know not everything exactly came through, and we're still working on tweaking a couple of things. In fact, in some cases, you may not notice that you even have any volunteer hours. All of those changes are kind of in the works here as we've gone into the beginnings of Workday.
The other thing to keep in mind, too, is that number that you see initially is what you have available as of today. So if you're looking at what your end of year balance was on whatever tracking system you used before, you want to make sure to put that end of year date in and compare those 2 numbers as well.
Yep, as of September 1st, because that's what's ported over, right? Which makes sense. So again, and let me go back and reiterate one of the other questions. Whether you have a conversation via email or you just say to your manager, hey, Michelle, I'd like to take the 25th of October off, right? Just make sure you do that so that they know it's coming. They will see that notification once you submit it. Even though they don't need to approve it, they'll still see it. You just don't want them to be surprised, and you certainly don't want them to not know you've taken PTO days on certain days.
Yep, and the other thing too related to that is if you're customer facing or you have PTO limits of how many people can be off on your team or in your department at one time, you're still going to go through dispatch for claims or IEX if you're sales and service, just like you normally would. So those two things are still in place like normal.
Yeah, we don't have an integration to IEX or dispatch if that's something that you need to be paying attention to make sure we have coverage for the business. So you still follow the same steps you would in any of those cases, or JIRA, for example, is also a part of that, to make sure that, again, the business has coverage, we can handle the business we need to address. This is how you record your PTO and then send it on to your manager. Are there additional questions, Jessica?
Yeah, one more just came in. So Dave typed, the email recently from HR mentioned that PTO being reported through Workday was only for hourly employees. That surprised me. Is this a true statement?
That is not a true statement. Everyone in the company is recording PTO through Workday. Hourly is going to go through the process of getting approval through here, but as an exempt employee, you'll still post it. This becomes basically your PTO tracker, which is why we ported over your time as of September 1st, which would take me to the second request we have, because here it is October. So if you've taken time off in September and now we go live, you'll need to go in and add any PTO that you have leveraged or used in September into the system to make sure your numbers are balancing out. But yes, both non-exempt and exempt employees will leverage Workday for PTO or any other absence request.
Any other questions?
I think that is it for now. Yep.
Okay. We can always come back. If something comes to mind, just pop it in the chat window. We'll come back to it.
Yep. The next thing I want to show you guys is the pay application. As Eric mentioned before, payroll is still being managed in ADP, so there's a couple of things to take note of here. You can come in here and update your payment elections, meaning the direct deposit checking account or whatever account you use to send your paycheck to. You can change all of that in here. If I wanted to add it, I could click add and then come in and populate my information in here, and that would, update it and send those changes over to HR. This is a training environment again, so this isn't functional in this particular environment, but that's where you would do it if you wanted to.
We don't actually pay Donatello, but and that's why nothing's coming up. But look, this is also a nice add-on, right? Because now it again is a self-service opportunity, allows you to make changes to your direct deposit. So if I was going to change the accounts or I wanted to add an account because I want to set aside extra money for my son or daughter in college, I could add that account. I could update how much money I was moving over from that account. In fact, when we go live, we'll ask you to go in and verify that that information for direct deposit is correct. Because again, as we start to phase out ADP for most of the activities we've done in the past, the only thing we're going to leverage ADP for going forward is actually handling our payroll, the actual cutting of the checks. So that's why we're moving in this direction with Workday. One central tool to help us enable what we're doing as an organization.
The other thing to point out in here too, if you want to still view your pay slip that's through ADP, so you can come down to this external links section, and this will actually take you to ADP. Also, the update tax elections is available, again, through ADP, since all payroll is still being run through there.
Correct. And the other one that's missing, again, training environments you don't see. If you wanted to get your W-2s, there'll also be a link there. So you could still go directly to your pay slips. Yep. You could go out and update your federal tax elections, or also view your W-2s. Workday is single sign-on. So again, we're kind of doing away with the notion of remembering all these disparate emails or passwords. Once I'm into Workday, I'd be able to seamlessly go into other apps like ADP. You'll also notice in that, if you click back on that pay section, again, this is a training environment. Here in the Actions tab, there would also be a link to Fidelity. So if I wanted to make changes to what I was doing for my 401 elections, I could click on that link, go directly out to Fidelity. They will ask you to sign on again because they just want to validate it's really you. That's important information, so something we certainly want to make sure is secure. So that link will be available for you as well. Do you have any questions on the pay app, Jessica?
Yeah. Who should we reach out to if there is non-edible info that is correct?
Non-edible information. Then you would want to reach out to your HR business partner to get assistance with that.
The last thing we want to show you in Workday for this session is the feedback. If you type it in the search bar here, you'll notice you have a couple different options. You can get feedback on self, you can give feedback. The first thing we're going to talk about is giving feedback. Let's say that someone you know did a really great job on a project you worked on and you want to let them know. You can type in a name and hit enter, and that will populate their name. You hit OK. There's a couple of things we want to point out here. This primarily is very important. Who can see the feedback? You have two options here, the employee that you're sending the feedback to and everyone. We want to stress, if you send this out to everyone, everyone can see it. Everyone all the way up through American Family, everyone at home site, your boss, their boss, everybody can see it. So you want to choose cautiously what you're selecting there when you provide feedback to another employee. You know, in this case, it's pretty positive feedback. You did a great job. Let's say you want to select a badge. There's different badges down here you can select. So it's teamwork, or you want to thank them for helping you out with something. When you submit that, it'll offer a summary for you to see called Details and Processes. And everything that you do, you get a summary like this showing exactly what happened. You have your details here. You can see the process history. In this case, it was completed. You can see the date, who it went to, and what happened. The other thing we want to show you is getting feedback on yourself.
Let's show them Donatello,
Okay.
so where that goes.
Yep.
Look, and as she shows you where that appears then as feedback, I'll reiterate what Michelle just mentioned. When you say everyone, I mean everyone. But at HomeSite, look, we like to celebrate successes. We like to give kudos. We like to catch people doing things right. So we like to share those types of things. So in this case, this is a perfect opportunity to share feedback, to celebrate the successes, the great work, the teamwork, the kudos, right? But you also have other types of feedback that you give. So if Jessica is my manager and wants to give me some constructive feedback, that may not be something I want everyone to see. So I would just have selected Jessica and me in that case.
Yeah. So where you see the feedback is if you go into this profile, view profile, you can come down here and you'll see there's a feedback section, and you can see the details of what Michelangelo gave feedback to Don here on, and said he did a great job, he was very innovative. You can also see feedback requested. So if Don here requested some feedback from someone, you can see the history of what he asked, who it was sent to, whether it was private or not, and if feedback was given. I thought we have a question.
Yes. Will this replace Achievers?
So Achievers is something that we utilize mostly in claims. I'm not sure if service or sales utilizes it. As of right now, I think that was Beth that asked it. Achievers is still in play and active because Achievers also grants like points for doing a good job, so there's a whole point reward system. So.
Yeah, and I don't think it really circumvents that. It could certainly add to it. And let me try to put it in context of other things. I work, even though I'm based in Akron, I work with obviously people in Boston, people in Akron, people in Phoenix, people in Seattle. So at times I may not be there, so I can't put things up on their board, as their team board or department board, but I can certainly share feedback in this style, even though I'm here, and share with them. So I think it's a nice tool to add to be able to just continue to share that type of kudos and celebratory types of things for a job well done. Hey, you really helped on this project. You were really a team lead and helped us come in advance of the time frame that we were looking to. Great effort, and celebrate those. Again, that type of information, much like your LinkedIn profile, is searchable. So as others are looking around for maybe somebody to join their team, they can see that type of feedback and be able to reach out and contact you directly.
Yep. The last thing I want to show you is getting feedback on yourself. Let's say you just worked on a project with somebody and you want to get feedback on your performance on that project. You can just click in their names here. Again, public or private. The one thing I want to point out in here is feedback templates. You can see there's a couple that are preloaded into the training environment. In the production environment of Workday, the live environment, you'll see there's more templates available, and they're categorized by home site or American Family. You'll see that HS or the AF in front of it, so you'll know whether it's geared towards American Family or home site. It's kind of nice to have those options as we've kind of been working cross-organizationally with American Family, and in the future, the general will also be in here as well. So this is kind of a nice option to have to provide some feedback or request some feedback in this particular case. Once you load a template, if you want to ask different questions, if you want to remove some of the phrasing, use the ability to come in here and edit these. If you want to just straight remove it, you can do that as well. If you want to add additional questions, you can do that as well. Then once you submit it, that goes over to the employee who you've added to the list. Again, you see details and process here. Details shows you the questions and everything that you have asked of this person. And then if you go up to the process tab, you can see exactly who you sent it to, when it was completed on. So in this case, I completed it today at 8:45 a.m. according to the time zone in this training environment. And then you can see that I sent it to Michelangelo and I'm waiting on a response from him. You can see here that's awaiting action. Again, all that's going to be visible in the profile once that's done.
And just to balance that, right, so now in his inbox, he would have a request for feedback, and that would be one of the actionable items he would need to take action on.
Yep. So if he wanted to come in and complete it, he could just type right in this box and hit submit, and it would be sent back to Leonardo. That's really all we have to show you in Workday. One of the other things we want to talk about while we're here is the SharePoint page for HR. They have a Workday page set up. You can see now Workday is live. Here you can see the challenges that they have out. You've seen signs everywhere. Emails have come out letting everybody know about the challenges and how to participate in them. One of the things I want to point out, two more things on this page. When you scroll down all the way to the bottom, you'll see the Workday job aids and manager guides. These are guides, PDF guides, that show you how to do certain actions in Workday. So if you get lost, you forget, this is a great resource to go to figure out how to get something done in Workday.
We'll also have additional video tutorials as we go forward in Homesite University to help you navigate through some of the more difficult challenges that we're hearing about, and also some video that you can reference again for this, for example, like this session, to go back and revisit and redo if you'd like.
The last thing I want to show you is the Workday Change Agent Network. If you click on here, you can open up who your Workday representatives are. It'll show you the list of agents by location. So your Workday Change Agents are a great resource to go to as we've kind of had access to the system. We know who the resources are to ask questions if we don't know the answers. But you can open up the list and it'll show you by your location who your representatives are and how you can reach them.
Absolutely. Jessica, do we have any questions outstanding on the list? All right. Look, again, when you think of this Workday learning session, the focus is merely to help you be successful day one, week one, and month one. To that, you'll also notice, as Michelle mentioned, you will see every Monday in October a weekly challenge. We ask you to complete those weekly challenges, get involved, give an opportunity to win some nice prizes. We have Yeti-like tumblers that you can win. We have tote bags that you can win. And if you complete all 4 in the month of October, you'll also be entered into the grand prize drawing of 1 additional PTO day. That's available to everyone across the organization. So we would really like to see you get involved, get into Workday, navigate around. You can't break anything. I tried. So look around, see what you need to look into, verify information, make sure that your personal information is up to date, that your pay information is up to date. Go ahead and add any PTO that you possibly have taken in September so that that is recorded adequately, and make sure that those numbers are up to date. You can do away with your PTO trackers altogether because it's now done in Workday. And quite honestly, you can click on any of the apps that you see on the home page. Even though we're not talking about benefits, for example, you could click on benefits and look at the current benefit selections that I have. That's a tool, quite honestly, that's difficult to navigate to and find within ADP. Not that we're in a position where you can make any changes yet because we're not in that open enrollment, but if you were to look at my current view and selections, you'd see what those costs are and what you've signed up for. Before I close this, are there any additional questions, anything we can answer for you? Anything showing up in the chat box, Jessica?
Not right now. You can wait a few seconds. Oh, there's time.
All right. Well, great. Look, welcome to a new Workday. Please get into Workday, pay attention to it, right? Because you want to make sure that you're taking an occasional look at what's going on in your inbox. Doesn't mean you have to stay in it all the time, but make sure that you're out there frequently and often to validate, to make sure that you don't have any tasks that are headed your way or that need your attention. And by all means, leverage the resources to help you, whether it's a PDF, whether it's some of the videos, your HR partners, your CAN agents. There are a number of resources to help you navigate. You're certainly not going to remember everything we have just shown you here, but you have assistance along the way. And with that, Michelle, thank you very much for driving the tutorial for us today. Jessica, thank you for being kind of the behind-the-scenes director and helping us with the questions this morning. And I'll give you back a little extra time in your day. Thank you again. And as I mentioned, welcome to a new Workday.
Thank you.